Alright, welcome back to episode 6, everyone. This is the Battle of Shiloh on Legendary difficulty. I've shown up on screen what I purchased in the interim. Picked up pretty much all the remaining officers that weren't captains, and then purchased a number of majors. If you run out of non-captains in your barracks and you build new infantry units, it generates new 0 XP majors, so we took advantage of that. I think we did 4 of those 0 XP majors, which you can see distributed around. We pretty much filled all of our new divisions with the weapons that we captured throughout the campaign, including buying 4,300 42s to help fill those ranks. We're really worried about, I guess not worried about, we're really interested in coverage for this battle. Also refilled our horse unit because we picked up some free Sharps 55s, and then just distributed the rest in ammunition, so we have about 20,000 in each of our supply wagons. We're going to try to do something a little bit different than I've seen done by others on this battle. I'm just trying to show here that we've sort of used all of our weapons. Everything that's remaining is not really enough to form a real fighting brigade. You know, even if we were to use those 500 farmers or reboard farmers, for example, it would probably cost us another major, which we, don't really have the money for. So I'm just showing here how I've reorganized my army. The way that this battle works is all of your 1st Division and the first 2 in 2nd Division join the western part. So we're going to take one 24-pounder with us and the rest infantry for coverage. And then the first 2 in your 5th Division join as well. So I'm going to put my long-range artillery there as they join that side of the battle pretty late. And I just want to have that artillery come in to kind of support us, but we're going to need that coverage early on. For the eastern part, I kind of want all infantry, as I'm going to actually try to skip that part of the battle. So the eastern part, it's the rest of your 2nd Division and the first 2 of 3rd. And then the rest of your 5th Division, which is why I've left that open. And then that'll actually finish up your deployment there. I think that it might grab some of the infantry from 3rd Division because we don't have anything in 5th, so I've gone ahead and just put infantry there at the beginning of 3rd. But overall, we want that northern deployment, which is the last deployment, which is sort of when the map opens up. We want that to be full of artillery, as we're going to retreat back to that line. And all the troops that spawn in the east, we're going to actually have them hide up in the corner, let them take the flag, and then retreat back to our defensive line. Our goal here is ultimately to sort of create a nice defensive line on once the map opens up, take our troops, which have won pretty hard on the west, have them wrap around and actually defeat the enemy, as they're really going to focus in on that eastern side once the whole map opens up. It's more than possible to win this battle on day 1, and that's what we're going to do. There's a slight, I could have made it a little bit better. My 5th Division is going to spawn in, not my 20-pounder, which I kind of intended my 20-pounder to spawn on the west. A little bit less than ideal, as I think I would have preferred that 3-inch to just be over on the right, but it is what it is. The way that the game spawns in, when I say first 2, is it orders it the same way it orders in the screen to an extent. The infantry go first, the cavalry, then the artillery, then the skirmisher units, and it will do that same priority. But when it comes to units within, so for example, when comparing infantry to infantry, artillery to artillery, it tends to give you the lowest stat, lowest numbered unit in the division. So it's going to spawn in our 2, quote unquote crappiest divisions. So I've kind of sped up this footage here because it takes a while for the enemy to actually engage here. I'm just checking to see how much artillery he's bringing. He's bringing quite a bit. Luckily, he doesn't deploy any of that artillery too far forward, so it's just going to do some superficial damage. We're going to try to keep our guys in coverage to deal with that. So he's going to be pretty aggressive here on what is my right flank, and that's all right. We've kind of set up these units in one of those nice right angles so that our A brigade can fire into the flanks if he charges at C, and vice versa. This guy just blitzes through 3 different volleys and ends up hitting my unit when he kind of falls back out of coverage, which is a little bit less than perfect, but we'll take it. We're going to be a little bit too aggressive with the C division or C brigade at times, but he still comes out of the battle with not too many losses, so I think it ultimately works out. One thing I need to remember is that you can't actually shoot into the water from the tree line there. It doesn't really look like it based off the unit's arc. because they're uphill, they actually get a little bit of a range bonus. So sometimes I'm going to have him out of the coverage there, and he's going to take some volleys that are less than necessary. But overall, still really happy with the result, and especially the way that this battle goes on the side. I'm going to have my 24-pounder sort of over on the right, and that's two reasons. He tends to also get really aggressive here on this gap between the tree lines, sort of where you see D Brigade. That 24-pounder will hopefully help there. Additionally, I have two of my newer brigades over there. You see B and C in 2nd Division. Those two just have 42, so they're not going to quite dish out as much damage as my 1st Division troops who have harps and 55s. Our main goal here is just to hold this river line and dish out as much damage as we can, and to that extent I think we do a really good job. This side is where all of our experienced troops are, so we need to be careful not to throw their lives away needlessly, but I think with this great cover that this side offers you, and the fact that the enemy has to run through these shallows, it really means that we're going to trade really well here. These are sort of my favorite battles when we're uphill, we're in cover, we're shooting down into shallows. It really is. It's nice. So here you can see what I was talking about, how in order for this unit to charge and sort of get volleys off on C, he has to give his flank to A, and right now we can't really exploit it, but the same is actually true. If the unit tries to run uphill and attack Brigade A, we have C there to sort of support. Right now he's got 3 different divisions up in here, which is slightly less than ideal. We kind of want to bounce these guys around to keep them from all advancing at once, but I think after we deal with this initial push, it's going to be spread out a little better so that we are only dealing with one of these brigades at a time. I really want to deal damage to his cavalry. I know this one is one of the smaller ones that he brings, kind of more like a scout cav unit, but still his cavalry is pretty mobile. It does present threats to our flanks, and a lot of times on this mission he likes to run cavalry around, especially when the landing opens up and tries to take that from us when we're not paying attention. So if we can do damage to his cavalry and try to limit that as an option, that would be great. He brings 2 really big cavalry divisions on the east, and I think he brings 1 big one here on this side. So I actually am not necessarily on my game right here. I missed that the 5th Division artillery is actually spawned in there on the north, and I should have been moving them down that road to get them engaged a little bit quicker, but somehow I missed the notification. So he's going to walk through the woods for a bit, waste a little bit of time. A little bit less than perfect, but ultimately not critical. Those guys are just here to increase our damage output. And the reason I put long-range artillery here is, like I was saying, we are going to bring all the troops we need for coverage initially, so we don't actually need any more infantry on this side. We're going to want that infantry over on our left flank when the map opens up. But we do want some long-range artillery here because he's going to keep a lot of cannons in the woods that are just to the south of this beach, sort of out of vision right now. And later when we're advancing, it's going to be really helpful to have some artillery there to dish out some damage. So yeah, so far we're doing pretty good for ammo. This is a mission where you can easily run out of ammo because you don't start with your supply wagon. I think our, C brigade is going to run out of ammunition first, but that's alright, as the enemy tends to slow down these attacks on your extreme right by the time the map opens up, which gives us the opportunity to sort of counterattack from this flank. So that attention that we're seeing right here on this flank is later going to switch over to being more where brigades B and C for 2nd Division are located. And that's another reason why I put that 24 pounder there, is we're going to have that ability to, when the battle gets pretty critical, as he really likes to charge after battle phases switch. That has to do with how the charge meter works. Whenever the battle switches from phase 1 to phase 2 or 2 to 3, the charge meter resets, and so it's very common to have huge mass charges right when a phase resets. So having that 24 pounder there to deal with any charges there on our center is going to be really beneficial. As you can see, I'm just firing into this guy from both my divisions out here on the right, just slowly pushing these guys back. We have good cover there. We're able to dish out a lot of damage because we've got harps, and he's probably got, I think looking at the post-battle screen, the enemy has brought a lot of Lorenzes to this mission, which is actually great because, you know, that's a really good rifle that we can give to some of our earlier brigades. And, you know, any of these weapons that we're collecting from the enemy are going to hopefully end up back in our army. And Lorenz rifles, although I don't purchase it as much just because there's some better options at that price point, it's still an excellent rifle, and it's, you know, just a little bit worse than the 55s and Enfield rifles that are just above it in the tier list. So getting more rifles to put into this army is going to be really beneficial because we're going to want to get away from these 42s as quickly as we can. The biggest change isn't just the damage output, which of course is really beneficial, but the nice thing about using a rifle is you have a little bit more range, which means you can engage the enemy first and not expose your flanks nearly as bad when you're moving these units around. I really value range in the weapons that we choose. It's not the end-all be-all, as a lot of times, you know, damage output and accuracy are also good, but one of the reasons why I really like the Harps rifle over the just normal standard 55 is that you just get that little bit of extra range, effective range I should say, in the Harps, which just allows you to kind of control these engagements. The Confederacy in these early missions aren't necessarily going to have great rifles, but on legendary difficulty they're also not going to be bringing in farmers or rewars like they normally would on major generals, so anytime we can have an equipment advantage, it's going to be really beneficial. And there you can see, just firing into that guy's flank, causing him to flash so that he's no longer, you know, giving volleys back to me, but just doing some low amounts of fire and bang. That double route, that's pretty cool. So I'm trying to move my division on the right here in this middle clump a little bit forward because I'd rather his artillery focus on that unit who's taken a little bit less damage than our A brigade, which is already taking a lot of damage. Not totally successfully, as our artillery tends to really like lock in on whatever units it's firing on, and it doesn't usually want to switch unless you get that unit hidden, and the enemy seems to have really good vision on this battle, so there's not a great way to keep your units hidden as long as he has active troops in the field here. Luckily, his artillery is pretty low tier on this battle, and he deploys his artillery pretty far away. So, as you can see, we have, you know, full volleys of artillery coming in, and it's not even necessarily doing more than one. You know, sometimes it's not even doing one casualty per volley. So, we're pretty happy with that. We can live with taking one or two hits every, you know, minute or so. So here he comes. He's charging in. And I just have my units on the flank there, adjust slightly, and my 24 pounders there. My troops are in cover, so yes, they're taking a volley, but he's not going to be able to stand in there for much more than one volley from each of these guys, and sure enough, there he goes. And a critical thing to think about in this battle is, or rather in all battles, is that the ability for troops to charge is affected by not just their morale, but also their stamina. So if you can make them retreat, they're going to run away, they're going to lose a lot of stamina. You know, these units have pretty high stats because they're 3-star and 2-star, so they're going to recover pretty quickly, but ultimately getting their morale down, getting their condition down, is going to make it easier to prevent their charges in the future. So I'm having my long-range artillery focus on that cavalry unit just because we want to really reduce his numbers. Later in this battle, we're going to have our sniper and cavalry unit operating around this flank, even though they're going to start over on the east. And the biggest threat to those units is actually just his enemy cav. You know, we can run away from his infantry. He doesn't actually bring very many skirmisher units on this battle, so we don't have to worry about those. And we can really outvision his artillery as long as we're careful. So with that in mind, anytime we can reduce the effectiveness of his cavalry, we're really going to try to take advantage of that. So he's charging it again here, but we're just going to hit him from the flanks, hit him with the artillery, and sure enough, he's going to get morale shot, but he's going to turn around and run away, and that's great. I mean, he didn't even get off the volley there, which is really ideal. And so now he's going to charge over on my extreme right, and that's okay, because I can, since I've dealt with the problem in the middle, I can move this A brigade over and get some flanking fire in there. And this is how you kind of play this battle. You kind of have to play whack-a-mole. If this was a human, maybe he would charge all at once, but you know, in AI it's going to charge piecemeal, and so that means we can kind of defeat these units in detail. Here we go. We're running low on ammo, but bang, there goes this phase. Okay, so now moving over to this eastern phase, we're just going to move all of our troops over here to the corner and try to skip this phase, as it's not really a viable defensive phase, and the only real thing you can gain here is more damage on the enemy troops. If you are able to defend both these flags, you don't actually win the battle, and not to mention we don't want to win this battle right here, even if it did. We want to get all the enemy troops. If you defend both these flags, the map just opens up just like it would under normal circumstances, so we just want to get there a little bit faster. This side of the battle doesn't really give you a good enough defensive line or enough units to inflict a lot of casualties like we want. So we've sort of spawned it in, like I was talking about in the camp phase of this battle, so that we have a lot of infantry who can quickly move back when this phase opens up. And the way this works is the enemy is going to cap a flag. It's going to start a countdown that is 30, as you can see there in the top right, and when it gets to 16, it's actually going to open the phase up. So I've also brought my skirmisher and my cavalry unit to this one. Both these troops are relatively mobile and can easily evade his troops, assuming that his cavalry doesn't chase them down. I was being a little bit aggressive with my cabs. I wanted to see if I could maybe ambush one of his artillery units or capture one of his supply wagons. No luck on that one. I could do potentially some more experimenting there and see if I could pick off one of his units in the sort of free time that I get while I wait for this phase to end, but ultimately that wasn't really the goal. The goal in this phase is just to get out of this battle, or this phase of the battle, and move on to the next side. So I didn't mean to bring my 20-pounder on this one. I think I just ran out of slots and didn't have enough infantry to fill this one up. The 20-pounder is what's coming from that 5th division, that 5th division, which I wanted to come over to the western side of the battle, but it's okay. If we have one artillery unit, we can probably get him into safety, as he's over here on the right. It's only a bit of a problem if you have multiple artillery units. And anyway, we can actually use him to get some free shots in on his artillery, which you can see there, just there in to the south of that flag. I'm just having my skirmisher unit hit this unit in the side, as I don't want this unit to charge down my last unit here that I'm just using for vision. And here we go. Now we've opened up to the next stage of the battle. Alright, so this is the phase of the battle that we were trying to get to. And as you can see, a lot of our artillery spawns to the north. That's exactly where we want them. Just going to move my supply wagons over to get some ammo to the western side as quickly as I can, as a lot of those guys are running low. And then I'm just going to have my infantry fall back. The only one that's really in danger right now is that one kind of in the center there. And I've just kind of sped this footage up because, it's not very interesting watching someone just give orders to the entire army. just going to have this guy fall back and try to get him into coverage. I'm just kind of worried that if he, turns in a lazy sort of turn, that he's going to get in range and get flanked by that infantry is kind of bearing down on him. So I kind of have him go about face and then direct his movement into those tree lines. So we're kind of going to make a line right there. You can see that kind of hook-shaped set of trees that's kind of in the center of the screen right now. That's going to make the center, and then we're going to actually defend the hornet's nest and then put troops out to the just to the right in those two tree clumps. And those troops that are there are kind of just meant to hold the enemy in place, as this whole empty field sort of in front of this area is all pretty open, and so we're going to have all of our artillery that we've captured and been purchasing throughout the game so far bearing down on him, doing as much damage as we can. And I think this is a really successful strategy. We're also going to get some free troops here in just a minute, and we're going to assign them to take up position in the in sort of the hot spots, so that the enemy is concentrating their fire on our ally troops and not on our troops that we keep throughout the campaign. So yeah, this part of the battle is a little bit gonna have to use some pause micro, as the enemy is kind of all over the place and really active in the charge. So in fact, here comes the charge right down our center here. This is sort of unfortunate timing. I didn't really see it until really late, so we're gonna have to back him up. And look, this guy takes a shot at canister to the face, and then unfortunately he's gonna let a volley off, and that volley is gonna do a lot of damage to our 24 pounder here. It's not too critical to take some damage on your 24 pounders, but if their losses go above 25, it means that we're going to lose a cannon, and we really don't want that. So we're going to pull him back after this engagement, hopefully, and try to prevent him from getting to 25. So the bummer there is really that we're going to have to play that guy a little bit more conservatively, but that's not the end of the world. We can live with that, as especially on this side of the battle, on that western side. They're going to start to get less aggressive. They're going to do a couple more charges here, but over time they're going to kind of concentrate all their push over here to the right side. And so we're just going to try to bottle them up and then sweep their legs by having the troops here advance through the forest to the south and take out their artillery, which they leave behind, and move in and attack them from behind and sort of bottle them up in front of this area that we're forming over on the eastern side. And yeah, like I said, goal here is to win this battle day one. So I'm going to move my sniper and cavalry over here on my right flank, and they're going to slowly kind of move through these forests. They're going to act as sort of the tip of the spear as we move through this area. Their real benefits are that both units have really good vision values, so they can spot the enemy, they can see if their infantry is still lingering or if they've actually moved out, and crucially they can spot the enemy artillery so that our long-range artillery, which is here, can hit them and even do some damage to that artillery itself. Unfortunately, I advanced here with my C Brigade a little bit earlier. He didn't have ammo, and he's going to take some shots there, as you saw, but just back him up, wait for that supply wagon to arrive, and wait for his infantry to head back towards the center. So yeah, you can kind of see the line that I'm making now, and I think this is a really ideal location, as not only is it good cover and a nice continuous line, but it also presents a really wide open field sort of in front of it, so that our enemies, so that we can sort of maximize our damage. Notice that my 24 pounder was taking some damage there, so I backed him up a bit, as he's already on 20 hits. Okay, so here come our allied troops, and that's great, just in time as his enemy troops are starting to arrive. We're going to have them sort of fill in, like I said, all the critical spots in the line. Hopefully, with a little bit of micro, we can get the enemy to, focus their fire on our allied troops, so that our troops can worry about doing damages on their flanks and, hopefully prevent them from taking too much loss. So our ammo wagons are here, so we're gonna get some ammo on our guys, which is nice. But ultimately, we're looking pretty good time-wise. We kind of have all of our units in place. We have a lot of artillery over here to support defending the Hornet's Nest. I've got a 12-pound howitzer, 24-pound howitzer, and then a James cannon all right there. And then I've even got a 6-pounder here that's going to kind of defend the center. He doesn't seem to charge too frequently here in the center, but it's still nice to have an artillery piece there to do some ground damage. So again, just backing up here as he charges in through the woods. Luckily, we get a couple of canister shots, even though this 3-inch doesn't do too much with the canister shell. It's enough to make him rout. That's lucky, as he had kind of pushed our unit out of cover, and if our unit's out of cover and then he decides to volley, we're going to take a lot of losses. So I've got my cavalry across the river now. I'm going to have them start working their way up. This battle's going to turn into a juggling match here pretty soon, as I really need to respond if I hear the enemy going into a charge, but I also need to be microing my auxiliary troops on my far right, because they are liable to get themselves into danger, and a big part of the vision game is being close, but not too close, so that we can open fire on the artillery, but not be spotted by them, because he really has a ton of artillery here on the left, on his left. They're all a little bit too far back to be effective, but as soon as you get up in their ranks and start taking them out, they sort of all turn and focus on you, so you're sort of at danger of having a lot of, your artillery troops. You don't really want to take damage on them. Your cavalry would be one thing, but you really don't want to take too many hits on our sniper in particular. They've got expensive weapons, and they've got a lot of experience that we don't want to lose. So yeah, I'm just going to be a little bit more aggressive with the 6-pounder, because, on the 6-pounders and the 12-pounders, I don't actually care too much if I take losses. It's not ideal. We don't want to try to get losses, but I'd rather them be up close, getting damage done, than sitting back too far, not doing any damage, and then saving all the guns. We're only going to be using the really good artillery for a lot of the game. The way this campaign kind of naturally flows out, we tend to actually need a core to actually start fighting right around the time that we have enough 24, 14, and Whitworth rifles to sort of fill out their artillery ranks. So we're only going to be using 12-pounders and 6-pounders and Napoleons and 10-inch guns, really as filler weapons for cores that are going to be sort of joining battles pretty late. But in the early part of this game, they're still really effective and they're worth using. It's just that we don't need to. They're not quite as precious to us. We can actually easily replace them if we really desired to. It'd be a little bit of a loss of money, but it wouldn't be too critical. So as I was saying, I sort of have the largest of the 3 ally units holding the Hornet's Nest, another one of the large units holding sort of that unit's left flank. So that's where they tend to put a lot of the attention, and then I have sort of the last one over here on my left side, sort of trying to take the attention from those troops. So you can see what I mean. My cavalry got a little bit close there, but luckily I was able to jump over and catch it in time and tell them to fall back before the artillery unit turned and did a bunch of damage. So now that my units have sort of refilled on ammo, I'm going to have this ammo cart moving back towards the center. I think I could have been a little bit more active about moving my supply around this mission. That's something I noticed in this replay. We're going to end the battle with some units having plenty of ammo, and other units are not going to have enough for the final stage of the battle. So I think if I was a little bit more active there, I could have spread that around a little bit better, and therefore had a little bit more of a clean finish. But as you can see there, that unit tried to charge the Hornet's Nest. We just did a little bit of fallback, micro, and now he's retreating, so that's great. We really want to keep that unit out of melee combat if we can. Advancing with these troops, and now that I can see that it's pretty clear over here, I'm going to start having my infantry peel off, as like I was saying, he really starts to focus your center and left flank here. So we're going to try to move forward here. My sniper gets spotted probably by that infantry over there, so he's going to take a shot and then he's just going to back up. This is where we slowly start to go on the offensive here. Again, these troops up here, these are all either ally units or divisions that we've made pretty recently. So, oh, and I missed this. Just focused over on my right side, and I missed the charge that happened here. That's a little bit less than ideal, but we're going to be able to fire into his flanks. We've got a lot of artillery here, and so hopefully we can get his guys to rout as well as ours. So. Sure enough, that's what happened. So we have this division sort of here, this 3rd D Brigade. They've got reboard farmers, so they actually have a pretty good melee weapon. So we're going to have them sort of refill that hole until our allied unit comes back. We have a general there, so he should recover fairly quickly, morale-wise. And we're kind of going to continue this rotation just to keep that spot occupied. Trying, of course, to do some damage on his flanks while he's sitting there so that he's less willing to charge, but, you know, for us to pull that off, we have to be pretty vigilant, so. So this unit still decided to hang out here. A shot from the snipers there puts him a little bit farther back. It looks like my artillery has taken some artillery fire because he was spotted over here, so I'm trying to find a new spot for him. Like I said, we're just trying to bottle him up, just keep him here in this position. We're firing into his flanks over here, which is lowering his morale. And just letting our artillery here do a lot of work for us. And they really are. I mean, the artillery here in this position in particular, it's not only a lot of kills, but it also just does a lot of morale damage, which prevents him from using his numerical superiority. So I find a nice position here where I can hit his artillery unit without being spotted, which is really ideal. So this unit's coming back online. I'm probably going to have him sit there for a bit so that he can recover morale. And then I would have him fill back in so that I don't take too many casualties there. You can see here why I like this position in the center. He tends to march troops right down this alleyway, and that just means that we can put a ton of damage on his flanks as he's marching by, which is just great. It's great when you can basically take free hit. You can take hits on the enemy for free. There goes another unit. This 24 pounder was taking a little bit of heat, and I was a little bit afraid if he charged at the wrong angle that he might get into melee. So backing up just a little bit. I think that was ultimately a good call considering the way that he charges here in a little bit. So here we go. We're moving in on his flank here. We're doing some damage to his artillery. This is the slow-moving maneuver that I think is going to win this, or that is going to win this battle. Yep, there he goes. He's just walking in front of our troops, which is great. So almost get my sniper unit in trouble here again. Just kind of like trying to micro two different fronts at the same time is pretty difficult. So I'm trying to find a spot here in the woods where I have good vision, but where my cavalry unit can't be seen. And I'm trying to run these infantry forward because I want them to take care of the artillery and take the brunt of the artillery's hits as opposed to my sniper unit. So now we're getting our artillery involved, or rather our cavalry involved. They're going to do some harassment on his artillery. I think here there's another charge going on, so I'm just trying to make sure and trying to get my long-range artillery on board to put some damage on these artillery so we can move through them relatively quickly. And sort of as I advance down this southern flank from west to east, I'm going to kind of peel off the infantry that were previously guarding this area and use them to sort of add in on the attacks. Sort of as we move east, this attack is going to kind of grow in troops, and that's going to kind of keep up our momentum. And by the time we get there, we're going to have enough troops sort of built up that we can effectively wrap around him and cut off his retreat. So kind of trying to juggle over here, playing good defense with, starting this offensive here in the south. And I've noticed that one of his artillery units is retreating in the wrong direction, so I dispatch my my cavalry to just sort of take care of him. The cavalry has relatively fast-firing weapons, so he can sort of chain route him. He won't be able to recover, and I can just focus him down. And here he comes. He's charging in again. I've got my artillery there. I've replaced my reboard farmer unit with the. This is unfortunate. But he gets some hits in on my sniper unit, which is really too bad. I should have just had them fall back, but it's okay. It's only 19 damage. I think It would have been a little more ideal if he didn't take that damage, but it's not so much that we're gonna, you know, lose sleep on it. Just look, I mean, look at all this infantry he has here. It's just kind of loitering around. It doesn't really know what to do. We're hitting it with so much artillery that it's not able to charge. It's we're in good cover, so his volleys aren't being very effective, especially considering the weapons he's using. We're just in really good shape. You know, this is, the AI is kind of in crisis right now. And I'm already kind of advancing on my far left. He's being very passive right now, even more passive than I've had him in the past, so. Charging in here, I get a little bit too aggressive with this D unit here, I think because he's trying to get shots in on the cavalry, but luckily we have this small farmer unit here on the outside edge who's able to do some damage at least. Not a ton, because he's got literally the most basic gun in the game, but he can do some morale damage at the very least. Prevent them from charging, you know, the typical thing. So I think I've taken out this artillery. In fact, I can see his guys running right there, so I'm pretty sure they're gone. In any case, he doesn't rejoin the battle later, so I think it's fairly conclusive that we finished off that artillery. We're going to have our cavalry now come back and join the offensive. I'm getting a little bit nervous about this right flank. He's really starting to concentrate troops here, and he does have decent cover here in this flank, so we're going to keep moving our artillery over. We're going to move over an extra unit of infantry. I'm a little bit less worried now about him charging the Hornet's Nest, as we've got a lot of troops to support there. So he's down to about 3 divisions of infantry here in the center. I think that is basically the extreme of his, you know, left position there. I think we're going to not have any trouble dealing with those troops with the forces we have there at the moment. So I'm probably going to move over that 24 pounder, and I might even start moving over my long range artillery now that I've mopped up a ton of the artillery that he has in that field. And that long range artillery can start to do work on some of the cannons that are in the middle of this field are not necessarily accessible by our auxiliary troops, so we're going to need the counter battery artillery, the 20 pounder, the Whitworth, the 3-inch, to start doing work on his artillery, which is sort of centered there in that open field where we're not able to get our troops to at the moment. Yeah, you can see on the strength of forces meter that we're already almost back to parity. I mean, which is great, because I think this is one of those battles where I think he's not quite 2-to-1, but he's, you know, maybe 2-to-3 or 3-to-4 or something like that. You start off with a lot less forces, that is. Here, probably wasn't necessary, but I decided to capture all these retreating supply wagons. I don't actually need the manpower. In fact, in some ways I want less manpower, but it'll at least draw up our total losses count, which is going to help us in the end there. You can see there's just no way he can charge across that open water with 3 units there, a 24 pounder a little bit far back. You know, it's not really going to work out for him. Adding this extra unit over here. These are my units that have the Rebore farmers, they're relatively new. Just trying to distribute the losses so that one unit doesn't take too much damage. The key to, I think, good army management in this game is to make sure your units are taking losses sort of equally distributed. Because even if a unit gets a lot of kills, if they take 300 or 400 losses and you have to recover those with recruits, that unit's going to lose a lot of experience. And I've actually been recording each unit's experience throughout this campaign, as well as their KDR per battle, to try to get a better understanding of how experience is gained and what the best way to gain it is. I noticed that there is a certain amount of experience that a unit gains just from joining a battle, regardless of how they actually perform. So that's an interesting idea. It kind of increases my willingness to try to bring full cores of units as early as Fredericksburg, because I think it gives a lot of your units some nice experience. So his supply wagons are retreating there. I'm going to go ahead and pick those up. And then I'm just trying to use these wood lines, advance through the woods, so even if his artillery gets a lucky shot off on us, it's lucky as far as timing goes, we'll still be in decent cover, and hopefully we won't take too many losses. It's easy when the battle gets to this stage to get too aggressive, and you've done all this work to set up a good defense and get yourself into a good position. It would be silly to throw away a good battle result just by being a little bit too aggressive right at the end. I'm trying to be a little bit careful with this 24-pounder again. That's the one that took the pass-through damage earlier in the battle. It would have been nice to be able to continue being aggressive with him, but it's not going to end our battle here. He'll be able to still do some damage just a little bit farther back than is ideal. So our allied units are getting smaller and smaller, but that's sort of by design. So I'm starting to have some ammo problems, and my ammo wagons are going to start getting pretty low here, so maybe it might have been smart to bring in about 5,000 more per supply wagon. I think trying to save maybe an additional 10,000 next time I play this battle might be worthwhile. It just seems to be about the right number, how you sort of naturally use your ammo throughout the battle. So I'm trying to expand this flank while my other units expand down the southern flank, with the hope of eventually meeting up. So this is kind of the last open area before we get into the tree line behind his position. It can be a little bit dangerous if he has a lot of artillery there, but we're just going to advance in the very far south first and slowly move the rest of our units across. So I've just cut a little bit of this there, as that just shows the map expands a little farther north. So yeah, just moving my long-range artillery up to make sure they can hit any of his artillery, which might be hiding in the center of this center of the circle here. This unit gets a little bit out of position. This is something that the units do, and you can see it a couple times in this battle. They've targeted onto somebody, and they advance a little bit too far. So it gave me a notification that I lost an officer there, but I looked post-battle, and I looked at the unit that it showed me when I clicked on it, and I'm pretty sure that's the divisional commander of the Allied troops. I'm not 100% sure, but I didn't lose any brigadier generals in this battle, so sometimes the post-game stream kind of lies to you, so it's hard to tell, as it will not always report all of your officer losses, especially in multi-day battles, which, to be fair, this battle isn't, since we're going to finish it day one. For the most part, we're going to actually lose very few officers throughout this campaign, and that's, I think, primarily because we're taking so few losses on our units. I don't have data to back this up, so this is completely anecdotal, probably not true, but I feel like there's some kind of parabolic curve on losses versus officer losses. I think you're sort of less likely, for each individual loss that you take, I think the initial losses, you have a very, very low chance, and the chance gets ever higher per unit that you lose. As I feel like there's some kind of sweet spot where when a unit takes, say, 25 to 30% damage, I get a lot more officers lost than, in some of these battles I'm going to have huge armies like this, and I'm not going to lose a single officer. And I think that's because all of my units individually are taking such low losses. There was the only strange case I've had of losing an officer really low was actually that battle in this campaign during the supply raid mission with our cavalry officer dying really early on. That's about the only time I've had an officer die on such low, or I guess such an early casualty count. In any case, it's going to be really beneficial. It's going to mean that we're going to have a ton of really high tier officers by the end. We're going to have plenty of units. We're going to have multiple 3-star generals with all the perks. We're going to have plenty of command limit for our high tier units. And we're going to be giving all of our units sort of an XP boost, which is nice. Couple that with the fact that we're going to have plenty of money, especially towards the end of the campaign, so we're going to be able to purchase a lot of the officers that become available. It's going to mean that a lot of our troops, which are going to get less experience, are going to still... So this is interesting. I get a ghost cav here. Kind of a strange ghost cav. I don't know who the heck he's charging at. Luckily, no artillery this time. That's one of those things that the mods fix. However, I think in this campaign we're going to be pretty lucky and not deal with too many of those. One of the reasons I think we're going to deal with it less is we're going to pick up that perk, which on our close range artillery rather, that makes them slightly stealthier and better cover. I think sometimes the game gets confused when a unit is hidden, but a unit behind it is seen, and it tries to path to that unit. I don't know if that's the only reason or the only way Ghost Cav come about, but having units in the backline which are hidden rather, seems to reduce the chances that, or at least reduce the frequency at which I've had to suffer with Ghost Cav. Because man, I remember when I first played this campaign, I used to get them all the time. It was a real problem. So you can see now here later in the battle, these units that come charging in, they really can't take more than a couple volleys. They've been taking damage all game. They're just not as powerful, not as able to charge long distance, and therefore a lot less scary. So these units now who are here in the center are in pretty bad shape. I mean, they're not able to charge out, they're not able to fight out. We're just going to slowly surround them, try to pick off their artillery, and then we can just slowly whittle them down. This cavalry over here tries to get away. We're going to chase him down. Luckily, he's one of those cav that started the game with like 1,000 units, so despite the fact that he still has 300, he's actually pretty close to shattering. And so I think, looking on the screen, there's only 2 artillery units left. There's that one artillery unit on my extreme left, which I'm actually going to start taking pot shots at. And there's one kind of in the center here by this house. I think there it is. So he's going to come charging in here. Just have to tell my units to fall back. Once again, he's pretty tired. All his units in here taking morale damage, so they're usually fairly easy to contain. But while I was busy doing that, he charged one of my units up north. Luckily, it's one of my ally units, so I can have him tank that shot. Hopefully with 3 different three different artillery units there, we can get him to rout and turn if we do. And I meant to send this general over earlier, because this kind of is the sweet spot, kind of protecting both those spots in the north. Really important to keep your generals in good positions that they're actually supporting your troops. We are not going to rely too much on his morale ability. Of course, when he's going to charge in, his morale ability is really good. But later in the game, we're going to get the ability for all of our 3-star generals that essentially give our units 10% extra cover. And then it's going to be really crucial that we have good habits as far as keeping our general with the army and keeping our general in the position where the enemy is concentrating their most fire. So he comes charging in with the 2nd unit there. I have to get my artillery unit out because it's taking a little bit too much heat. That's one that started, I think, on 7 guns, so it started with 175, so he hasn't lost a gun yet, but I don't want to lose one now that he's getting a little bit lower. And I think my 20-pound artillery here kind of went on an adventure trying to track down that artillery piece. I thought he might have the range, but apparently he didn't. Gotta be careful with those artillery, man, because sometimes they will just walk into the enemy force trying to attack some unit on the other side of the map. That time it would have been my fault, though. I'm pretty sure I gave that order to try to get shots in on his last artillery piece that I couldn't see. Or rather, that I couldn't do damage to yet. So we're going to take a shot on his cavalry here, and boom, there he goes. Only, I think, 1 cavalry left here in the center, 2 artillery pieces. I'm now moving these guys through the center of the field. I'm going to have to be pretty cautious with those guys, as I don't really want them trading volleys in the open. But I do want to dissuade the enemy from trying to push now that we're kind of constraining the circle. So I need to bring those troops forward so he'll at least have a reason to stay in the position where he is. We're just slowly peeling off infantry units to try to finish off the circle. We're pretty close now. There's just that big open field that we have to plug up. And yeah, his troops are in trouble now. You know, where are they going to go? So I'm going to actually not speed this footage up, so I think it is one of the more interesting ones. We have plenty of time. We have 2 hours, 3 hours really. But he's still got pretty good cover, especially here on the right, which is ironically kind of where we're pushing him, given that our best units and our best artillery are kind of on the left side of the screen right now. It's sometimes important here on these end battles to try to push him in the right direction. So I'm kind of thinking, how can I get him to not continue to move right like I'm moving my units, but maybe I want him to move a little bit to the left of the screen so that I can get him a little bit more in the open. But at the same time, I kind of want to be risking my allied units, and my allied units are kind of there at the top of the screen. So we're to the point now. Okay, we lost an officer there. That's too bad. Yeah, that guy's taking a lot of damage, so we're going to have him pull back a bit. That's one of our fresh new units. I'm trying to get some shots in on his last non-routing artillery piece here with my sniper. You know, he's kind of in the water just a little bit, so he's going to have a little bit less cover. I've got all my artillery coming online here pretty shortly. And that unit there on the edge is just getting drilled, so he's not going to be able to do any charges anytime soon. And there, even from this position, my actual line infantry to get shots in on his artillery, so that's really nice. And you can kind of tell before you even push in that his army is naturally going to want to move, or rather retreat, to the east. He is naturally kind of pushing himself that way. It makes sense right now, as that's where all the cover is, but it means we're going to have to be careful not to push from the west too hard, or his units are going to try to retreat right through our troops, and that's going to cause a lot of damage, especially because our troops are probably pretty tired, pretty low on ammunition, and having the whole enemy come charging right at them is not really what we want to inspire. So my units here on this side are getting really low on ammo, and this is where it would have been nice to play a little bit safer with how much ammo I had left, as now these units are going to start actually firing volleys really infrequently because they're low on ammo, and that's going to perhaps reduce our overall KDR. So I'm going to have some of my units swap out for units that I have that have ammo that are maybe less tired, to try to be a little bit more effective. You can see this ally unit's now down to 400, so he's dropped pretty low. This D brigade, they're using the reward farmers. They're getting pretty low. They've taken a lot of losses, but they have weapons that we don't value very highly, so it's okay if we take losses on them right now. I'm trying to keep my artillery up close to the fighting, but I'm also trying to keep my cavalry moving around, try to plug any holes if he tries to slip out with his cavalry, or if any of his infantry units slip away. Another tactic to try here, and this is unfortunate to get some shots on my guys while they're in the open because I can't see them. Another tactic to try is if you're really afraid of that he's going to retreat in a particular direction. I've found anecdotally, and seen this a lot with other people playing, and also just from the battles I've played previously, that if you take extra units and sort of stack them behind the flank where you think he's going to retreat to. I think it dissuades him from retreating that way. He sort of sees that there's a lot of enemy troops this direction and is less inclined to go on a rampage that side. So recommend if you think he's going to try to retreat to the right, for example, maybe take some of the depleted, tired, low on ammo troops and move them in behind your units that are still doing some fighting to discourage them from retreating in that particular direction. So he's still able to charge, but luckily we have a unit there, albeit one low on ammo, who's able to hit him in the flank to convince him to stop. Now we've completely surrounded him. We're moving our troops up. We're taking this wood line. We could be even more aggressive on the left side of the screen here, but I'm trying not to push him too far to the right. This is exactly what we were hoping for at the beginning of this battle. And I'm kind of trying to peel off some of these units here as I'm noticing that a lot of my troops on the left side of the screen have a lot of ammo. Not a lot of troops on the right have ammo, so if I can thin my line on the left and move some of those guys over to the right, we can continue to do good damage to them. And I think he's now down to just that one last artillery piece. I'll hopefully check here in a second. And I think a good thing to do here would potentially be to start moving artillery pieces over to the right side so we can try to start pushing them left, but also leaving the artillery pieces where they are and having them continue to rack up kills. Also pretty good use of our artillery. There goes another unit. And I pulled that original 24-pounder from the western side of the battle, had him come up from behind to sort of discourage him from retreating south. And again, just trying to pull off units that don't have ammo, put in units that do, so that we can continue to do damage to him. We don't want to get too close, so we have artillery firing down, and we have friendly artillery from those gunboats up north firing on him. This unit right here is getting pretty small, so I'm going to have these two units here, my third A and fourth A from the looks of it. Both low on ammo. So I'm going to have them sort of take up positions behind this small ally unit that's been dropping pretty rapidly, as I think he's the only unit taking serious fire right now on that side. So again, we could be pushing up here and getting into combat, but I don't want to push him too hard. I don't want to encourage him to retreat out of the pocket. I just want to slowly move my troops around, keep him contained, keep him right where he is, where we're putting out a lot of damage, and where the majority of his troops are routing and not doing damage back to us. I mean, at the moment, even the troops that aren't routing, they're only firing back at our allied troops, so it's not totally catastrophic. And here we go, moving over some artillery finally to kind of get them in place. And these units, even though they have 1,000 each, a lot of these guys started at 2,500 units, so they're actually getting fairly close to shattering here. There's actually going to be quite a number that shatter sort of all at once. I'm going to, at some point in here, make a save, and the reason I'm going to save it is for a future video. I want to save this result, so how we do, how many of the enemy we get, how many losses we take, and then I'm going to come back here. I'm going to turn off the fire mode on all of these guys here, and I'm going to go ahead and proceed to day 2. And I'm going to try to show that even though we've effectively eliminated every unit on the field, that he doesn't just get new troops, like new brigades, new divisions. He instead gets all these divisions back. The reason that's a problem is that is then going to kind of screw up the final battle tally count of how many actual kills we get here on this battle. Yeah, it's tempting here, especially now that he's really reduced himself to a very small, tiny ball here in the corner. Tempting to move in from that left side, try to get fire on him from all sides, but from my experience, if we were to move in here too aggressively on his left, we would probably push those troops to charge right into our infantry. So we don't want to apply any more pressure. We've got its units right where we want them. They're retreating. They're not firing back. And you can tell they're already trying to. They're kind of bouncing around towards this corner. They're already thinking about retreating destruction. So I'm going to start redeploying troops this direction to try to have a couple of backup plans. As again, if you have extra units sort of hanging out behind your troops in a particular direction, the AI tends to respond to that and is less likely to charge that, or it's not charge, that's not the right answer, but mass route out that direction. We're down to, I think, 3 units. All of them retreating. Our artillery is still firing away. And just gonna fast forward to this is his last unit. Takes a few extra volleys, but then we're gonna finish this off and go to the post-game screen. And you can see there he surrendered for a sec, but his general brought it back. But boom, there we go. 10.46 KDR. I went ahead and cut the music from this section as I've been getting copyright strikes for it, which is kind of strange. But yeah, overall very happy. We did lose a couple of low-tier officers, which is too bad, but we picked up a lot of great weapons, and in fact picked up a ton of Lorenzas, which are great. Those are rifles we want to use moving forward, and picked up some great artillery pieces, some more 12-pound howitzers, some 3-inch, 10-pound ord there. Picked up a lot of our equipment that we lost. Overall, we're really happy with how this battle turned out. I think this is the most fun tactic you can play on this battle. It's just kind of getting this victory in the first day and moving forward. And it shows we lost a gun there. That's the 24-pounder that I think we lost in, or rather 12-pounder we lost in. So that's the end of the battle. You can see the result screen here, and I just want to thank everyone for watching. Bye.